Hey, it's Teresa from Fuzzy Whatnots. Welcome back to my channel. Today's first episode of CMYK play was supposed to be maroon, but something happened with my footage of maroon, so our first episode's gonna be emerald. Whee, for technology problems. So, in today's first episode of CMYK play, CMYK standing for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, the primary colors. The gist of what we're doing here is I'm giving myself 3 attempts to match or get as close to matching a color that I chose for the week that was either chosen by me or by you, the viewer. I'm giving myself 3 attempts to get as close as I can to the color. So, like I said, our first episode was supposed to be maroon, but something happened with my camera, so I didn't get nearly any of the footage that I thought I got. And so we're moving on. Emerald will be our first experiment, if you will. So in these experiments, I will be using a stock mixture, sometimes powdered dye to mix, and if necessary, a combination of the both. My stock mixtures are taken from a blog site that I found. It's called Bee Mice Elf, which I will link in the description box below. I don't think it's currently being added to, but it is still up and running, and there is a wealth of information about mixing dye stocks for roving, which can translate, you can translate into dyeing for yarn, which is what I've done. So all the information that you need on what I'm doing in the video, what dye I'm using, how I'm using it, what form I'm using it, will be in the description box below. I will also be explaining it as I'm doing it. These experiments are done using 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. Please keep in mind that this is not the right or wrong way to do this. This is just how I'm experimenting and how I'm doing it. Please be advised that many things can change the outcome of your experiments at home, namely being if you use a different base than I'm using, yarn base than I'm using, if your water is more or less acidic than mine, and if you choose to swap out dye powders. That will change the outcome of your experiment. I encourage you to take the information from my experiments and use it as a jumping off point for your own experiment. And with all that being said, let's go visit past me in the dye studio and mix up some dyes to make emerald. So in today's episode of CMYK play, we are going to be using the cyan, yellow, and black, which is what the K stands for. And we are going to be trying to get a really nice dark emerald color. So I'm going to start with just about equal parts of the blue and yellow. I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of the blue, the cyan, plus 1 teaspoon of the blue, and then 2 tablespoons of the yellow. Let's mix that up. Let's see what that has got us. Should be a nice, like almost teal color, I assume. So that's a nice rich green color. So I'm gonna add, so that was, I'm gonna write this down. So we did 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of cyan and 2 tablespoons of yellow. Now I'm going to add in a half a teaspoon of the black, and we're going to do that one at a time. We're going to mix that up, see where it's at. I'll move this yellow so that way it doesn't get contaminated. All right, so that was our initial color. It's a really nice bright green. So now we've added a little bit of black, and that's brought that shade down a little bit. I'm gonna let that sit for a moment. So I think I'm gonna try bringing that down one more. We're gonna add one more half a teaspoon, and then a little bit of water. A little bit of water to our mixture. So that is a gorgeous emerald color. All right, I am going to say let's take this one to the pots and see where we got. As always, we're gonna have 3 skeins to try to get to the color that I'm looking for. So this is going to be number 1. Now I haven't added any citric acid to this water yet. I will add it in this time. I want to see what happens when I don't add it until after the water's heated up a little bit. In goes our first skein. So that's a pretty bright green as of right now, but all the color has not soaked up yet at all because it's just getting the heat. So I'm gonna keep moving this around for a little bit. Because there's no citric acid in the water yet, that means that the dye isn't going to strike. The water's cool, the dye won't strike, so it has more time to evenly coat the skein. When I'm trying to do solids or semi-solids, I generally won't add the citric acid right away. Generally, as a rule of thumb, I try to not add the citric acid right away. I'm gonna play with this for a little bit, and I will be back shortly. Okay, the water is starting to have a little bit of heat to it, so I am gonna add the citric acid to the water now. And in this situation, I am just gonna dump it in because it will get stirred around by the skein. So I just added 2 tablespoons of citric acid to the water. So now as the water heats up, the dye is going to adhere to the yarn. As you can see, the color is getting a little bit darker. So I'm going to keep stirring this around because I want the color to be as even as I can get it. This is a good shade. I really like the way that this green looks. But I want to try to get a little bit darker. So we're going to go back to the mixing and mix up number 2 and see if we can't get that to be a little bit more of a richer color. All right, so let's go back to the dye table and work on number 2 mixture. So number 1 was 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of the cyan, and then 2 tablespoons of the yellow, and 1 teaspoon in total of the black. So for number 2, I'm going to stick with that shade of green. I really like it. So we're going to stick with 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of cyan, 2 tablespoons of the yellow. And this time I'm going to start with doubling the black. So for this one, instead of 1 teaspoon, I'm going to do 2 teaspoons. We're going to start with 2 teaspoons. So here's our cup. We're going to start with 2 tablespoons of the blue plus 1 teaspoon of blue. And we don't want to contaminate our yellow, so we need to wipe this off. 2 tablespoons of the yellow. And then you're going to go with 2 teaspoons of the black. Mix that up. Add a little water. See where we're at. All right. Let's see where that one's at. Ooh, I like that. It's even a little bit deeper. I'm gonna let that set for a while, let it soak in, so I can get a better look. The paper towel test is not 100% accurate, but it gives us the closest feel to what it's gonna look like on the yarn. So that's the one that's in the pot now. So we're just gonna let that sit there for a minute and kind of soak in. So that is a bit darker. It's not the greatest light. I promise, guys, I'm gonna work on getting better lighting out here in the studio, but that is just a shade darker. So I actually want to add 1 more teaspoon to this next mixture of the black. I want it just a little bit richer. Yeah, I think that's gonna be the one. I think that's gonna be the one. All right, let's go over to the pot and get the next one started. So like the other one, we are starting with just plain water, no citric acid. I'm gonna turn the heat on. This burner takes a little bit longer to heat up than the first one. All right, so let's pour our mixture in. Put our skein in. I'm gonna stir it around a bunch so I start feeling the water get warm, and then I'm gonna add the citric acid. So I'm gonna stand here and stir this for a little bit, and I'll come back with you guys in a few minutes. As you can see, this color is much darker and I really like it. It's starting to get warm now, so I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of citric acid into the pot. Stir it around with my hand. So this is definitely much darker. So it looks like we're probably going to be using the third skein. This is pretty close, I think, to the picture of the color I was going for, but I want to see what the middle ground looks like. It's kind of hard. The one difficult thing about this these experiments is that it's really hard to gauge when the yarn's wet. If I'm spot on. So that's all the fun of it, though. Even if it's not 100%, my goal is just as close as I can get to the picture. It doesn't necessarily need to be 100% exactly the shade. The goal is just to get as close as I can to it. Because as you can see, any little variation with any one of the colors is going to change the way that this looks. So I'm going to stir this one for a little bit, and then I will come back to you and we're going to mix up a third concoction. Okay, so here we are back for the number 3 try, and I'm actually going to bump up some of these figures. For the blue this time, the cyan, I'm going to try 3 tablespoons. Of the cyan, and then I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of the yellow, and I want to see what that green looks like. So I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of black and see what that looks like. Well, let's add in 1 teaspoon, actually. Let's add 1 at a time since this is a little bit of a different mixture. Let's do 1 at a time and see the progression, shall we? What is that? That is definitely a very pretty color. Oh, I really like that. I really like that with 1 teaspoon. Still gonna take it down to 2. Yeah, I like that one. I think we're getting into the territory now. All right. This third pot is the same as all the others. There is no citric acid, it is just tap water. We're adding the color in. Number 3. And we're gonna add our skein in. Our skein. Our skein. Turn on the heat. Stir it around. I'm going to keep stirring this around so I feel the water heat up, and then I'll be back with you. Okay, the water is starting to get some temperature, so I am going to add the citric acid into our third mixture here. Stir it around with my hand. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up stirring and running these to temperature, and then I will show you what they look like once they're dry. Okay, so that was emerald. This is what colored one came out looking like. Color 1, which was 2 tablespoons and 1 teaspoon of Caribbean blue, the cyan, 2 tablespoons of yellow, and 1 teaspoon of black. It's very pretty vibrant green, I think. Attempt number 2, a little bit darker, a little bit more black. We used 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of cyan, the Caribbean blue, 2 tablespoons of the yellow, and 3 teaspoons of black. So that one darkened up a little bit. There you go. And then attempt 3, which, to be honest, I like all 3 of these. But I think attempt 3 is the closest to the color. And attempt 3 was 3 tablespoons of the cyan, 2 tablespoons of yellow, and 2 teaspoons of black. So I think number 3 is the closest. I'm going to take photos of these and put them at the end of the video. So thank you for joining me for the first episode of CMYK Play. I plan on doing an episode once a week. So stay tuned for next week's episode, which will be Amber. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And then if you subscribe, you won't miss the next episode of CMYK Play. So thanks for hanging out, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. I forgot to tell you, if you aren't interested in dyeing up your own, these will be available on my website when this airs. So if you're seeing this, they're available to buy on my website. Because I keep detailed recipes, you can also order a larger quantity than just one. So yeah, these are on my website. See you next week.